Welcome to Nice and Blunt. I'm Adam Riancho, and with me is Angus McKay back for another podcast episode. How you doing, Angus? It's the divisional week. What are you excited for?
Oh boy, what am I excited for? I'm excited for one of the Bills or Ravens to beat the Chiefs. That's what I'm rooting for at this point. I think
Please.
both of them could give them a good run for their money, and whoever comes out on top, I just hope they beat the Chiefs. NFC. I feel whoever makes it will be deserving. I'd be fine if it's the Rams, Eagles, Lions, or Commanders. I'd be stoked for any of them. But from the AFC, I just hope it's not the Chiefs.
Anyone new would be the entire country would be on their back. Anybody but them. Yeah, can't wait for that. I don't think they'll beat the Texans though.
No, 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 no. Yeah.
As Charger fans, we got our ass handed to us by the Texans, but that game was in Houston. And with
Hmm.
the Chiefs off a ton of fucking rest, they haven't played since Christmas. Like the full roster, you know,
Yeah.
they're gonna
No,
they're gonna be so hard to stop.
it's going to be interesting to see how Kelsey does. I
Yeah,
the thing all year I've been wondering, like, all right, are we going to see vintage Kelsey in the playoffs? And especially with this much rest, I think we really could.
I would expect it. Like that's what his numbers point to. Has he already like overtaken Jerry Rice on it on like every stat practically in the playoffs, or is he like almost tied with him?
He's almost there. I think he still needs 2 seasons to go.
Yeah,
Like he's close, but he's not like immediately close, especially because they keep getting the bye week, which
right.
does matter if you're trying to like
Yeah, that
increase
extra game is pretty important.
100%. So he's not quite there. I think he probably needs a couple more seasons, but I'm guessing that's his personal goal is to become basically the best positional playoff player in
Yeah,
NFL history. So they're going to probably want to get him the ball a lot.
yeah. I'm sure he'll be a matchup nightmare as always. It's always just like, how the fuck is he so wide open? Because you get the shot of Mahomes and you don't always get down the field where he is, and when
Yeah,
it pans with the ball, it's like, where the fuck
wide open,
is everyone? How is he so
wide open.
fucking open?
Yeah. No one's even with a lot of the times no one's even within like 3 players lengths of him. And it's like how do you lose him? Like you'd think you'd see him, or at this point you'd think you'd know the routes he runs.
Or just
Yeah.
keep
So
two
much
fucking
tape on
people on him at all times. Yeah.
him.
It
Like make Xavier Worthy make those other people do it. Like just make it not him. And
I
figure
sure
it
hope so, man. But
out.
let's talk about the opponents. We have the game of the fucking year possibly with that Bills Ravens game. Like this almost feels like the Super Bowl. I I feel like it would be kind of disappointing if we don't get Lions Eagles in the NFC Championship,
Yeah.
and like those two games are, at least emotionally, I feel, serving as the real Super Bowl because
Oh
I'm
yeah.
pretty convinced we probably do fucking get the Chiefs again. I don't want it, but that's like our consolation prize.
Because my big worry is that whoever wins in Bills Ravens is going to be so like
Spent.
spent from the game. Because you're right, like that is like playing a Super Bowl, and then they're just going to have to go up against the Chiefs with basically like one hand tied behind their back. So that's my biggest worry. But hey, I'm hopeful that the Texans like that's a like on their best day, that's a good defense. You
Yeah,
know, that's a good defense. CJ does have the ability to be a great quarterback, so
you
you're
know,
hopeful that he can rise to the occasion.
Stroud, I think, proved a lot of the season-long doubters wrong. Like he had such a slump, and his
Mhm.
scrambling ability, you don't get that in the regular season, but for him to use it effectively, and like when he scooped up that like botch snap that seemed like it was going to be like a down at the 2 yard line on setting up a fourth down and like clearly a turnover, for him to
Mhm.
turn that into that drive, that was really impressive. Wish Herbert could have done that.
For real. Yeah, I mean, we don't have to talk about the Chargers a ton. We vented about it before we started the stream
Just to
because
save the audience from an
one
hour long conversation.
two bitter people talk for 20 minutes about how excited they are for next year and coping with that. But
Yeah, next year hopefully. But if Herbert sucks in the playoffs again, that's gonna be pretty discouraging. Anyways,
I'm gonna be buying a Rams jersey.
okay, so who do you got in Bills Ravens? What matchup are you looking at? Who you think wins?
God, I hope that it's the Ravens and I hope that it's Lamar. And just because like I would like the narrative around Lamar to change that like he can do well in the playoffs. And I like Derrick Henry. Like as a player, I think Derrick Henry like I have bet against him every year of fantasy just because all of like the statistics like the data tells you to do that and he just keeps proving he's an anomaly.
Yeah.
He's like LeBron where you're like this shouldn't be happening. This shouldn't be happening. Like you should be breaking down. You should be regressing. And he's just not. So I think there are those athletes out there where you're like it just doesn't apply to them. And I think he's proving that he's in that tier of athlete where he's old and yeah, he has all this tread on the tires. It just does not matter. So I would love it if the Ravens and Derrick Henry and Lamar could get a Super Bowl. I think that'd be very cool.
What's kind of crazy about Derrick Henry is that like his first 2 years in the league kind of sucked. Like
Mhm.
his rookie season was so bad. I don't exactly remember the second year stats, but he's gotten so much better over time. And he was drafted with Zeke, who had like 6 or 7 straight years of like dominance, and now is like one of the most washed players in the NFL. And
Mhm.
I still think Henry's older than him. Like
Yeah.
it's insane. And I think Henry. I don't think he has as many touches as Zeke because of that rookie season. But they're both the two largest volumes of any player in the NFL, and Henry's just so impressive. And
Mhm.
yeah, him on the field, I think is that difference maker they need. But I think if they don't have Flowers healthy, I I would probably consider switching my pick to the Bills in that game. Like
Mhm.
that's huge.
I get that.
If he's not on the field and they don't have that deep threat,
Yeah.
that's
It
kind of the
definitely
weakness of the Bills. One of their only defenses, the secondary. So they're going to need him.
passing attack way worse. And that's been the story of Lamar this year is that he's just been a way better thrower of the
Yeah,
football. And if you
so
make the
impressive.
offense a lot more one-dimensional of just run and keep an eye on the scramble, it just makes it a lot easier to game plan for him for sure.
So you're taking Ravens, you think? Final score?
Taking Ravens, and I get where you're coming from with like but if they're missing one of their better passing weapons, then you got to kind of raise an eyebrow at it.
It's going to be a close game. The thing is, like, there's 5 teams that I think could easily you could convince yourself deserve to win the Super Bowl and will. It's
Mhm.
obviously the Chiefs you can't dismiss, but the Bills and the Ravens are right there. Wouldn't be shocked at all. And then the Eagles and the Lions. Any of those 5 teams are like so poised for success. And
Mhm.
now there's kind of like an odd off chance that the Rams could do it, but they need back to back to back perfect games
Yeah,
on the
they
road. Probably doesn't
feel
happen.
they're like what's the word for it? They're kind of like frisky almost, where like if you underestimate
Yeah.
them, like they could rise to the occasion. Just because like I think Sean McVay is easily one of the better coaches in the NFL,
Yeah.
and they have on his best days one of the better quarterbacks and like an experienced quarterback in the NFL. Puka is an elite weapon. Kyron is an elite weapon. So like they know what they're doing, and if you don't give them the respect of like actually planning for them and considering them, they could totally show up and just kind of ruin your day.
They've drafted defense possibly better than anyone else in the league. Like, other than the Chiefs' young defense, I can't find another roster in the last few years just on draft picks alone that is that successful. Like, everyone wrote off their defense when Donald retired, and they just had 9 sacks in a playoff game
Yeah.
with 2 draft picks from the same college on the D line. Like,
Mhm.
they know exactly what they're doing drafting defense. They've missed a couple times on like offense
Mhm.
in the draft, but in
And then they
general
got
on
Puka
defense
in
it's
like
just.
whatever round in the 80th round or whatever they got Puka for, where
But
you're
they
like,
also
all right.
took like what's his name, Tutu Atwell in like the second a few years before that. That doesn't look too good. But yeah, on defense as well as just that Stafford connection, you can't write them off ever. But
I back to the Bills Ravens. I can kind of see it being a bit of a shootout because I don't look at
yeah.
either team as like having an amazing defense. I think both can be pretty vulnerable through the air, and I feel both of those quarterbacks because like those two are like the top two MVP considerations.
Right.
So I feel like that will play into it a little bit. I could see it being like both teams easily scoring over 25 points.
I noticed the weather though is going to be, bless you, less than 10 degrees on Sunday.
Oh shit.
Bless you.
Okay. Oh yeah.
That's another reason we're like, oh shit, maybe the Bills are because they have such a strong home field advantage. Like if it turns into an ugly game, it's gonna probably come down to the run game.
Yeah.
And if it's a 23-21 game, I'd probably take the Bills. But I think if it turns into a shootout and neither defense can really stop anyone, I I think I kind of trust like the drive after drive ability of the Ravens, where they
Hmm.
can beat you with Henry on an 80-yard run, then
Yeah.
Lamar can piece together like a 3-play scoring drive. Then even like Isaiah Likely and Andrews can just dominate for a fucking possession. Like I think they have a little bit extra ways to jerry rig a touchdown, whereas the Bills is just like, well, is Allen gonna throw it, or is James Cook gonna have a breakaway play? So I would expect like a 38-35 type of game.
Yeah. I get that for sure. Yeah, I'm excited though. Like that's gonna be a really, really great game.
Yeah, can't wait. Well, let's pivot to the NFC. Um, which who do you think? I mean, let, let's leave the Lions alone for a sec because I can't envision them losing to the Commanders. But this Rams Eagles game, do you have any concerns about the Eagles?
Nah, man, AJ Brown's getting his reading done, you know. He's
Yeah.
ready to go. I don't know what that's about. I
I
don't
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm not sure if it's like a big deal. It's just kind of weird. Like you're just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, could you guys stop doing weird shit? Like whether it's the one guy saying like Graham saying like, oh yeah, Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown aren't friends anymore. There's just like a bunch of weird stuff that keeps happening where you're like, you guys should be like lock it in. And there's kind of that element of like lock it in. You have like a Super Bowl winning chance. Like you are in a much better position to win a Super Bowl this year than ever before with Saquon playing like he is. You don't like lock it in.
That I think is the only reason why I'm still not like a believer in Sirianni,
Hmm.
because like that's his one fucking job, the locker room. Like he doesn't call the plays, he's not the
Yeah.
offensive coordinator. Like it's almost entirely Kellen Moore's fucking offense.
Hmm.
It's not like he does and it has the controls on defense. That's Vic Fangio. His
Yeah.
role is the fucking locker room, and while it's good that he lets everyone do their own shit, there have been so many instances where I don't feel like they really respect him on like a Dan Campbell or Jim Harbaugh level. Like, did you see that clip that surfaced of when he wanted to go talk to Jalen Carter, and there was a security guard, like positional level coach that was holding Sirianni back,
Hmm.
and like, no, like you're not going to talk to him right now. Like, how the fuck do you have more pull than the head coach in that situation? Like, what the fuck? And that's
Well,
why
that was
things are too lax. And the AJ Brown thing, I think, is just passive aggressive. Like, I'm not happy that I'm not playing well, and I should be. And oh look, I'm just reading this book. I'm just reading a book. But why the fuck would you read it on the sideline in a fucking playoff game? Like, the
playoff game.
fuck?
Yeah, it's so fucking weird. Like the Eagles are just too weird where I'm like either they're going to like they just don't feel locked in and that's what I was saying with the Rams before how they're kind of a frisky team. Like they feel like the Rams feel like a team that if you're not locked in and respecting them the way they need to be, you can get embarrassed pretty quickly.
Well, the two most important probably positions on your team, and one of them isn't a position, it's the coach. That I think is a clear advantage for the Rams over the Eagles. Like Hertz isn't a big drop off, but I don't trust Hertz's decision making in the pocket the same as
Mhm.
Stafford. Like I saw a clip, I saw it on social media, and the caption said that it was Jalen Hurts' first pass under center that did not involve play action of the
Mhm.
entire season. And I was
Yeah.
like, how the fuck does that happen this late where you don't
Yeah.
even ask him to fucking prove that? Like,
Yeah.
what? So, yeah, I if it's close, I could see the game turning, but they did play each other the first time where Saquon just took over, and that's where I'd still probably bet on him to win. Where,
Oh yeah, no,
yeah,
he's having like an all-time year. Like that's kind of the problem of it. And that's why like at any point it's hard to discount the Eagles because Saquon is just like having a historic season.
well, I hate to revisit this,
No, I know,
but
you want to talk about
if we
you want to talk
rewind
about
about
like
4 months ago
bad takes? You
on
want to
this
talk about like
podcast, my friend,
things that turned out to be wrong? That's there. The Viking, I remember I said that the Vikings could go 0 and 5. That I mean, granted, that's just a regular season thing. Again, I was totally wrong on that. And yeah, the
you
Saquon thing, totally.
unprompted made a bet with me that Saquon would not even be better than Kenneth Walker this year. You
So
also didn't
yeah,
think the Eagles would make the playoffs. So
I
you
did
have
not.
come full circle, my friend.
Oh
Saquon
yeah.
is really,
Well,
really
no,
shown you
I
who's
I
boss.
could look and say this is what he's done. He clearly has done that. Like he clearly did it for sure. Like he clearly did it.
No, you were worried about Kelsey leaving and the Hurts touchdowns, and I was frankly I only thought his injury history was the main concern, but I didn't expect 2,000 yards. He blew every
Yeah.
expectation out of the water.
For me, it was the injury history element where I was like, I could just see. And again, this is a more, we could talk about this just in terms of fantasy football for next year and how this was an anomaly year in terms of running back health, where like
Yeah,
nobody really got hurt
especially
and no,
compared to receiver.
especially compared to receiver, and the injuries people did get were not like long-term season-ending injuries. It was
No,
like,
other than McCaffrey and Pacheco, you maybe missed like 3 or 4 games from like Mixon and Taylor and a handful of others, but nothing that was like otherwise. Kenneth Walker was probably the only other injury prone guy I can think of.
and so normally every like I think running back is like 50% more likely to miss games than receiver, statistically speaking. And that just didn't happen this year. So
Yeah,
yeah, and I'm glad for that. Like you don't want anybody to get hurt. So I just thought maybe he'd get hurt. Maybe the Eagles wouldn't be as good. I didn't think maybe that Vic Fangio coming out like that defense was like a bottom three defense last year. So I really was like, okay, cool, they're just going to be bad. And that, like, not only did Saquon really step it up and have a historic year, the defense is great now. So, like, so many, and Kellen Moore didn't do anything too amazing with the Chargers before, like, not to a
no,
point where it was like, oh, here he comes, he's going to make this offense hum. So yeah, all of that they managed to turn around. Good for them.
yeah, very impressive season, and it also feels like they're also hanging on by at least the coach is hanging on by a thread. Like if they lost this week, I would not be surprised at all if they
Yeah,
fired Nick Sirianni. Like he
100%.
probably has earned a bit more cachet, but that's an organization that moved off Doug Peterson. What, 2 years after he won the Super Bowl? Like
Oh yeah,
they have no patience at all. So
100%.
yeah, that's a weird place, and it feels like they have a lot of like ticking time bombs. But anything that you'd put on them compared to a different team, I would 100% bet on the other team to completely crumble. Like if you put everything surrounding them and all the noise on the Cardinals, like they would have
Mhm.
lost even more games than the Cardinals did this season. Like the Cardinals would have folded so quickly, but for
Oh yeah.
some reason every fucking week it's just like a brand new revitalized world, and it can completely like get enraged at something that's going poorly, or you give so much credit to any given player any given week. It's kind of
Mhm.
remarkable, but I would expect them to win.
I would as well. Like I again, like you said, I think it's gonna probably be Lions Eagles. That's what it should be.
Should be
And
for
that's
sure.
what I'm going to guess that it's going to be.
So obviously Jaden Daniels is we're both picking Philly. Obviously
Mhm.
Jaden Daniels is playing out of his mind, and maybe it's a combination of his maturity and skill set, but I kind of feel like it's mainly the situation he finds himself in that's just like they're so ready for
Yeah.
a change, like they've got rid of Dan Snyder, and like
Mhm.
almost every single coach they had was new, and other than like Terry, Like,
Yeah.
who the fuck on offense, other than like O linemen that I'm not gonna fucking know off the top of my head in Washington, who the
Yeah.
fuck is like a consistent piece of that team? They totally revamped the secondary too. Like they benched a first round pick from the year before
Yeah.
for and never looked back. Like
Yeah.
they didn't give a
Real.
shit about the past,
Hmm.
and that like fresh spirit. I would be so excited if I recently got drafted by the Commanders, like this
Hmm.
this year.
Oh yeah. Sorry, Jahan Dotson.
I know that fucking
Got kicked out, right?
it's his own fucking fault though.
Wow.
Like for them to move off a first round pick, trade him to a division rival, and
Yeah.
not even question like like
Yeah. Oh no, they were not dealing with sunk costs at all. It was just like, all right, cool, not working. Get the fuck out.
and they're top three in cap space. They have 89 mil in cap space this season.
That's going to be exciting for them next year. Like, I don't know, like the Lions defense has really been playing very well. Like, I think that's been the
Yeah,
biggest story for the past couple of games in the regular season is just how well they've been doing since losing Aiden Hutchinson. Um, and they get the break. I think the bye week is going to be massive for them. They already got Anzalone back. Like they're just going to be rested and ready to go. I think they probably just want it so much more. I really do. Like I think it like they have this weird aura about them and this like idea about them like no, this is our fucking year. Like we're doing it. And getting the bye week, like if they didn't get the bye week, it'd be a little like ah shit, maybe like
three straight
maybe
road games as well. Yeah,
yeah. I think that'd be rough for him, but to get the bye week to be the number one seed, like that's gotta feel like reaffirming of
yeah.
it's our year and like we're doing this. Let's go kick their ass. Like what? And I feel like they would have that thought whether it's like Jordan Love or Jaden Daniels, where they're like, all right, we're gonna kick this guy's ass.
Yeah, for sure. I I was trying to like I was expecting a downfall for them in December, and I bet against them a couple times, and every
Mhm.
single time they proved me wrong, and it was just like such a validating like
Mhm.
way that it happened too. Like none of their losses were like close calls. Like that game against the Vikings, like it was a clinic, and they've
Yeah,
done that repeatedly,
yeah,
week over week. Like
yeah. And they
I
knew
really trust them over Philly.
like I think they knew how to beat like they analyzed it and were like, all right, cool. We still think Sam Darnold is Sam Darnold, and we are going to blitz more than we've ever blitzed before and put pressure on it. So like they understood their opponent and how to beat them, and it worked. So
Yeah.
they're really smart. They have some very smart coaches who can come up with a solid game plan, and I kind of think that's what's about to happen against the Commanders, where they're going to be able to say, okay, cool. We do have a season's worth of tape on Jaden Daniels. Let's figure this out a little bit.
If the Commanders win, that would be one of the biggest fall offs. Like that'd be the biggest letdown of the season, probably. Like even more of a letdown than Darnold the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd
100%.
be a shame if they lost to the
Well,
Commanders.
again, the Darnold thing for this long has been, oh, look how much better than expectation he's doing.
Yeah.
So there was always that tinge with Darnold.
Yeah.
This is, hey, the Lions should make the Super Bowl.
Right.
Like they should, and or at least the conference championship. At least that.
Yeah, that's where
Uh,
they were last year. They can't fall back. So,
yeah.
um, you got the Lions this week, Eagles, and then Lions versus Eagles. Let's not spend too much time on it, but just straight up, who do you lean towards?
I'm gonna say Lions.
I think in Detroit, I'd have to go Lions too, because
I'm
like
gonna say Lions.
if they don't have Montgomery back this week, they'll have him back next week, and that really equates the run game. And I do still trust Jared Goff and Ben Johnson more than
Mhm.
Jalen Hurts and Kellen Moore. So I think Lions are in the Super Bowl. You agree? And then we're both picking the Ravens, but obviously that kind of feels like a bit of a toss up. Ravens versus Chiefs. Who you got?
I'm gonna say Ravens. Like I'm hoping that it's
I
Ravens, and
sure hope
like
so, man.
I look. I just don't want the Chiefs to be in the Super Bowl, so
Right.
I'm not going to pick them. I can convince myself like they're really good. Like straight up about the
Yeah.
Chiefs, they're very good. Like they're very good. I think majority, if you ran it 100 times, majority of the time they're going to win the Super Bowl. They're very good. They know what they're doing. They know how to win football games. Like they're just very good at that.
And week
And
one, they were a toe from a 2-point conversion on the road, and like Henry was barely involved in that game. Like it
I
was a
think
different offense.
the Ravens have figured themselves out a ton. The problem with the Chiefs is like in the fourth quarter, you're just it's so like you're watching it, you're like Mahomes is going to lead this drive down the field and they're
Yeah,
going to get it. And they're going to win by a field goal and Butker's going to kick it and that's just what's going like it feels so like demoralizing. It's like watching Steph shoot logo threes in his prime and you're like that's going in. Like that's
yeah,
going for most other people and most other teams that's not going to work. And then for
yeah.
them they just figure out a way to make it work. But
Andy
yeah,
Reid,
I
man.
really good. Like very like strategic, very like game management-y and like, hey, how do we win this game? Like we don't care about the other shit. It's just this is how we win this game.
I know it'll never happen, but no one ever brings him up in Coach of the Year, and I honestly think that there's still a stronger case for Andy Reid than almost anyone else. Like I
Mhm.
think Dan
Yeah.
Campbell deserves it, and I think he will win it.
Yeah.
But you could still convince me that Andy Reid deserves Coach of the Year because they had so many losses
Yeah.
on offense. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
they were crippled from their own. Like we hammered into Mahomes week 4,
Oh
and
yeah.
it wasn't just Rasheed Rice. Like Pacheco got injured again
Yeah.
recently. Like they're doing it with Kareem Hunt, Juju Smith-Schuster, and like kind of still a wash DeAndre Hopkins to a certain extent. Maybe not
Yeah.
totally washed, but nowhere near his prime.
No.
Kelsey's not the same. Like Noah Gray's fucking stepping up. They got Samaje Perine contributing heavily in the like. There's at least
And
like
it's not like
three plays a game where like Samaje Perine
yeah.
is making this miracle conversion on third down and keeping
Yeah.
the drive. Like you remember that fucking like flick
Oh
of
yeah.
the wrist where
Yeah.
Perine was on the floor when it happened and he still fucking caught it. Like
Yeah. No, it's wild. I'm rooting against them. I always will. I hope they don't get it.
it's
I
so
hope it's their
depressing to like have all this optimism on even 4 5 other teams and yet
yeah.
still have this like in the back of your mind like yeah I'd still probably if I was putting money down at the casino today I'd probably put it on the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's just so hard not to, because it's just so hard not to. And again, it's because they have like the history of it. Um, yeah, it's we'll fucking see. I'm rooting for them. I hope the Ravens are hungrier. I hope the Texans put up a good fight. Like I
Yeah,
don't know. I think the Texans like again, they have a great defense when they're playing at their best. And you're hoping CJ could like do what we know he can. So,
without Diggs and without Dell I just don't know if they have enough firepower though. Like Nico Collins can do a lot but their
yeah.
defense would have to force at least another 3 picks like they did on Herbert. But
Yeah.
okay, so we're going with the Ravens over the Chiefs
Yeah.
and that sets up a Super Bowl Ravens Lions. Who you got there?
God. I'd still I'm gonna pick the Ravens just because I'd like it to be the Ravens. In that scenario, I'd pick the Ravens.
Well, now we're just agreeing on everything.
Yeah.
I think that NFC like dominance that he has. I think if Lamar ever does make a Super Bowl, I think that's really gonna like
Yeah.
be a big factor where like the opponent just doesn't quite know all
Yeah.
of the tricks to stop him. And it wouldn't be as terrible as last year's game between the Ravens and Lions, but the
Yeah.
the Ravens offense I don't think would be stopped by the Lions defense at all. And it
Yeah.
probably comes down to Dan Campbell, you didn't actually have to go for it on fourth down there,
Yeah.
and that might be the 1 point difference that seals
Yeah.
this game. But watch the Chiefs fucking win again, man. I don't want it to
Hard,
happen.
it's hard not to pick them is
I'm
the problem.
I'm
Like,
so
yeah.
braced for the disappointment.
Yeah.
I've been expecting this since last summer, and
Yeah.
as like optimistic as I am that somebody else can do it, I still in the back of my mind am convinced the Chiefs probably do win.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you there. So.
Anyways, so let's talk about the 6 teams that lost though, kind of briefly. Let's not spend too much time on it, but we'll go down the line. We briefly touched on the Chargers. They're
Mhm.
fourth in cap space this season, and
Yeah.
as long as they address weapons, not just
Hmm.
receiver, I think they need a tight
Yeah.
end and a running back, whether it's in the draft or through free agency. I don't care how the fuck it happens. If
Yeah.
they get miraculously lucky and Ashton Genty is there, you better
Yeah.
fucking take him.
Yeah.
I can't envision him falling, but if he's there,
Yeah.
he better be a fucking Charger. And
Yeah.
otherwise, like, Will Disley's not going to cut it at tight
Yeah.
end.
No, no, no. It's that catch for me. I was like, all right, get out. Like we need something else for
Yeah.
sure. Even how like Washington was able to go pick up the ghost of Zach Ertz. Like he at least has a track record of coming
Yeah.
up. It's got to be someone like, even if it's someone like that, like it doesn't have to be an elite level talent, just someone with a proven track record where you can go and do that. Yeah, we need a better tight end. I don't agree with paying Dobbins. I've seen that a lot on online forums where people are saying
No.
we need to pay Dobbins, like give him 3 years and a couple $1 million. Like
Let someone else do that.
for the guy, I would love that. Like I
Yeah.
want him to get that. I feel like he was so good this year because he was only 500 grand. Like that was why he was as good as he was.
Well, also the line, like
Yeah.
he ran it kind of outside the tackles a decent amount. Like he wasn't straight up the A gap on every fucking play. I feel like the tackle play really helped him, and he was very impressive. But I think as much as he deserves another contract, I'd happily let somebody else
Yeah.
make that payment. He got
Got to
he
get
got a
rid of
good
Edwards.
deal, a good shake, another chance. But I wouldn't bet on him given he got hurt at the end of the year. I
Yeah.
wouldn't overpay him.
Need to get like Gus Edwards isn't going to cut it.
No.
I just don't think so. Yeah, we gotta like I would put a lot of effort mostly into offense. I hope we get T. Higgins. I think that's probably the biggest single move that we could probably make in terms of free agent signing. I think he would help out a ton. I don't think we should pay Palmer.
No.
Personally,
A
no.
year ago, I thought he would have a real big role in this offense by now, but he had such a
Yeah.
irrelevant season. Yeah, I'd move off as well. Um, they'll be okay, but you have to be worried about Herbert in the playoffs. Uh,
I'm glad we got to. I'm glad we figured that out, though. I'm glad we like that was what we were talking about. I'm glad we saw it. I'm glad we saw. Okay, cool. He didn't come. He didn't like elevate the team. He maybe wasn't. He wasn't the reason we lost like completely, but he certainly didn't do what other amazing quarterbacks do, where they like elevate everybody around them and kind of take over the game. So
yeah.
hopefully they can figure out some way to work around that in the off season. And with all these draft picks that they have, I think it's like eight. And the cap space, they can come and be a lot stronger next year and get that first playoff win.
Hope so, but given Jim Harbaugh and his like track record, I'm starting to believe that like if they do win a Super Bowl, it's not going to shock me if it takes 8 years.
Yeah, it could. For
Like
sure. I
I
mean,
think they'll consistently be a wild card team, barring
yeah.
a devastating injury. I think they should be expected as a wild card team every year. But even if they win the division, they don't have home field advantage. We went to a Charger game against the Bucks. I went to it against the Ravens. It is not an even home field split. Like,
Yeah.
and in the playoffs, that is so effing valuable. Where if they have to go on the road every fucking year for 3 games and they
Hmm.
never can get a bye, like, that's just such a big uphill battle. The roster needs to be so immaculate to really overcome some of those things. And if Herbert can't improve, I have a hard time seeing an immediate path for, even like the AFC Championship game. Like to expect the Super Bowl right now, it
Yeah.
feels years away. And
I
it took Harbaugh what? Like not, was it 10 years with Michigan?
it was a while.
It was at
Yeah.
least 7 or 8, right? Like he kept it's like trying to push over a fucking vending machine. It's not going
Yeah.
to happen on the first shove unless you're
Yeah,
maybe Derrick Henry, but
yeah,
like you need to rock it back a few
yeah, yeah.
times.
Oh, for sure. Look, my hope is that Herbert is Matthew Stafford. I think it took Stafford 12 seasons to win his first playoff game.
Yeah.
Um, which that's a long fucking time, and I hope it's not that long, but it does take a while. I do think maybe Herbert with Staley and the other like I maybe he hasn't developed as much as he should, certainly for someone to get the contract he got. That's neither here nor there though, like
Yeah,
hopefully it's something that yeah, it might take a while. I'm certain like before I was pretty hopeful that like 3 years from now we could win the Super Bowl, still holding out hope, but
we'll
wouldn't
see.
be surprised if it takes longer.
This offseason is going to decide a lot. Last year, the expectations were not this high as they were going into the playoff game. And if you told me in
Yeah.
last February that we were favored to win on the road in the wild card round, that is a major success in itself. And now it's just about improving from here. But on to the draft. They should
Mhm.
have great scouting given Harbaugh's college experience. And Ortiz from the Ravens has shown that he's great at draft picks. Like
Yep.
Ladd, even Alt, like
Yeah.
from the standpoint of rebuilding the entire franchise, yeah, I'll accept Alt over Neighbors despite that not
Yeah.
looking great. But they wanted Brian Thomas at receiver, and
Yeah.
I would love to have Brian Thomas. But I digress. On to the next year. Chargers had a good season. It ended poorly, but
Mhm.
overall, I'm very satisfied with the improvement that they made.
Mhm.
Moving on though, after them in the AFC, the Steelers are just
This is who the Steelers are. Like being a Steelers fan has to be the most frustrating thing. Like there are just some fans where like
it's
God, like it's just this is what it is. It's every year you like everyone's like what are the Steelers doing? They're probably not going to be that good. You then overperform and then you squeak by into the playoffs and then you're a first round elimination. That's just what it is.
yeah.
That's what it means to be a Steeler. And you
They
get
need to
like
bottom out, I think.
well, because you're not getting great draft picks. You're getting like okay ones. So it's just kind of this game of like, well, okay, what is happening? Like, what are we hoping for? What is going on here?
Another thing that I think would be a major red flag to anyone in the organization or fan base, TJ Watt has been irrelevant the
Yeah.
last month. Like I
Hmm.
think it was two or three straight games where he didn't log a single statistic, whether it was a
Man.
sack or a tackle even.
Yeah.
Like that's dire worst case scenario. And
Yeah.
if you're just flailing at quarterback with an aging Russell Wilson who's might bend you over a barrel if he could,
Yeah.
like I don't
For
I
real.
don't think now that Russ has a bit more, of cachet in the building that he's like, yeah, just pay me another million. That sounds good. You know what I mean? Like for I don't see why he would sign up for that at all.
For
But
sure.
I don't see why they should go back to him. I think they can pivot again. They'll be 10-7 with anyone. They were 10-7 with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph the year before.
Exactly. Yeah. Like that's just who they fucking
Yeah, they're
are.
not going to change, and it's kind of a bummer to watch. Like in September, October, it's very fun, but once it's December, it's just falling off. So I'd
Yeah.
rather be in the Chargers situation than the Steelers, but
Oh
maybe
yeah,
I'm
because at
biased.
least in the Charger situation, you're hopeful that things can reach that apex. But again, with the Steelers, you're like, well, what are we hope? Like, what do we think's realistically going to happen? This is it. This is what it is.
They do have 52 million in cap space, but I don't trust them to spend that on offense. They always spend it on defense, and they don't draft well on offense either. And then this
Yeah,
receiver situation with terrible, like, personality concerns at every fucking receiver they've drafted since Antonio Brown has been like a major headache, whether it's Chase Claypool, George Pickens, or even Deontay Johnson, who they traded wisely. Like
yeah,
he's been fucking cut by two teams.
I
He's
know.
literally on the Texans right now.
Oh, they
And
released it.
yeah, oh, they already released it. They already cut.
I saw that
Oh my
notification.
god, like they draft talent at receiver, but I think the fact that they can't reel him in
They
maturity wise is also a testament to the coaching. Like, why the fuck do you desire this experience over and over and over again? Why can't you learn from it or like just avoid these landmines? But they did get Pickens at a fucking steal in terms of talent, but now it's pretty evident why he was just a second round pick.
for sure. God, I think isn't Jalen Warren coming up in terms of a contract? Like they're
Najee
just
is. I think Warren has at least another year. Najee, they opted off of his 5th year option, and I would not bring Najee back if I was them.
no, no,
He
no.
averages like barely 3.9 yards a carry.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So they're just in a rough spot where you're kind of asking yourself like what is there even to do? Like we're in the same division as the Ravens, so we have to like get a wild card spot. That's kind of all we can hope for. And then you're also still banking on the fact that like you need Cincinnati to not get its shit together. You're definitely better than the Browns, but great, congrats, you're third.
If the Browns got Cam Ward, I wouldn't be shocked if Stefanski has him back above the Steelers next year. But
Yeah.
before we move on, um, this is the last point I'll make on the Steelers where I wouldn't question Tomlin as much if in that final slide at the end, like what did they lose? Like 5 straight games?
Yep.
How in that stretch do you not consider going back to Justin Fields?
Oh yeah.
You know,
Like
like
you're doing that poorly. Like you might as well just get something different and make the defenses kind of question it.
like on Christmas Day when you're losing to the Chiefs, I know they kind of hung around for like the beginning of the game, but then they didn't force any turnovers and it really just fell out of hand in the second half. Like after that, how are you not somewhat willing to go to Justin Fields? And maybe they've seen enough from Fields where it was really beyond the question. But Fields went 4-2, and then
Yeah.
Russ finished 6-6.
Yeah.
I
No, it's
I'd be willing to rotate them a bit more, but that's just me.
I get it. Yeah.
Last team in the
Reasonably
AFC was
so.
the Broncos, and what an impressive season, man!
If you're a Broncos fan, you got to be pretty stoked. Like you just do. Like
Oh yeah,
we agreed on
out of
the
the
over.
cellar.
We agreed on their over in terms of win totals, but I certainly didn't have them as a playoff team.
No, 10 wins was shocking.
Yeah, like really great for them. Um, I don't know. Like I don't think Bo Nix is like an elite quarterback talent. I really don't. I'm not out here like, oh, he's this generational talent. I think Sean Payton's just a very good coach who can get the most out of a quarterback who is older. So he's older. He's a bit more developed
Bo Nix is
in
only
terms of
two
like.
years younger than Herbert.
So like you do have an older quarterback. I think this is kind of about as good as you could expect Bo Nix to be, and then maybe like what usually kind of happens is okay, now they have tape on him for a whole
Yeah.
year, and he's an anomaly, and defenses are probably gonna be able to like plan for him a little bit more next year. So I don't know. I don't think, oh my God, Bo Nix is the second best quarterback in the division, or like even the second best rookie quarterback, and he should have gone higher. I don't know.
Well, I think because of the coaching and the defense that's able to elevate their talent, like they play better than at least what Vegas expected. I don't want to write off their roster, but like beyond Sertan, nobody fucking knows who more than like 3 other players are unless you're like a diehard Broncos fan. Like if you know anyone beyond Riley Moss by name, that's pretty impressive. So they kind of shock you on defense. They always have a good game plan. They have good coaching. But Bo Nix, I think, is a more mobile version of Mac Jones, at least as a
Mhm.
rookie, where like they both had a lot of experience. Bo Nix had even more experience, and both of them made the playoffs in the rookie
Yeah.
season. Like Mac Jones won what, like 10, 11 games with the Patriots. They didn't win
He
any
was in
playoff
the
games, but
playoffs,
like,
yeah.
yeah, they made the playoffs. It was kind of the same situation. There's a
And he was
chance
a
where he
Pro
falls
Bowl.
off a cliff, but I
Yeah.
think because he doesn't have Belichick and now he has Peyton, he's not going to drop off. I think he will improve,
Yeah.
and I could see him back in the playoffs like 3 out of the next 5 years. I would probably expect the Broncos to be either the last team in or the first team out. I wouldn't expect them to win the division, but I wouldn't put it past them if Kelsey and Reed retire.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so they have a bright future. I'm sure they're over the moon with what happened.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
I also kind of feel like that Week 18 game is like that. I can't trust. Their fucking demolishing of the Chiefs. What was it, 38-0? That I think is the most like fake score this season.
Oh yeah, you
And if
played. Everyone you played was like had never touched a football field before, professionally at least.
and to pretend like the Chiefs didn't want Burrow out of the playoffs, like in hindsight, I did pick the Chiefs to win that game, and that was not fool. That was very foolish. But
Yeah,
at the same time, if the Bengals didn't lose to the fucking Patriots, then the Broncos wouldn't have made the playoffs either. So they're
yeah.
they're in a similar vein of like the Colts and the
Uh,
Chargers.
get that.
But
Yeah,
I'd much rather bet on the Broncos next season than the Steelers.
yeah, 100%. We do there.
NFC, who missed the 7 seed was
Vikings,
5 seed was Vikings. Yeah,
and Packers.
Packers and Bucks.
Oh yeah, and Bucks.
What do you think about the Bucks? We watched the Bucks in person.
We watched the Bucks in person. I mean, I'm happy for Baker. Like Baker is
Right.
proving the Browns completely fucking wrong. Like he seems like he's a starting quarterback. Good for the Bucks for snagging him. Like in that division, they can stay relevant. It'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of like Evans and Godwin going forward. Has another
Yeah.
major injury, so you're wondering like they were lethal at the beginning of the year when Evans and Godwin were fully healthy. Fucking A. Like I thought Baker should have been like an MVP favorite. It was just like it was very impressive to watch. If they're gone or hurt or not the same, I'm not sure what to expect. But they're in a division where like I don't know, like who's like they could just own that division for years to come.
Well, I think because of the injury, it's a lot more likely that Godwin returns, and so then it's just a question of how well does he recover, and that's kind of like Brandon Ayuk, where if he's back to 95%, you probably have a top 15 receiver as your number two, and that's pretty fucking dope. I love what Jalen McMillan was able to do, and Bucky Irving is just a
Yep.
revelation. So I feel like
Yeah.
coaching is kind of the only thing kind of holding them back. Like when Todd Bowles punted to overtime against the Chiefs, like that was a pretty obvious sign that yeah, maybe you need someone more aggressive. And if you had Bruce Arians making that decision, it would
Yeah.
not have gone that way. And that's the little
Yeah, for sure.
extra oomph that I'd love to see from them. But they're right there. They're a competitive team, but they're not on the same level as the Eagles or the Lions, and a team like the Commanders are on equal footing and rising. It They need a
Yeah.
little boost, but they usually draft really well. The Bucks are run very very well.
Yeah. So if you're a Bucks fan, I think like making the playoffs seems pretty solid because I don't think the Saints are ever going to get their shit together.
No,
Your
Saint.
biggest competition is clearly the Falcons.
You could argue
But
the Panthers might even be better than the Falcons next year. I would expect the Bucks to win the
that's what
division again.
like that's kind of the beauty of the Bucks is you're in such a good position to make the playoffs every year, even if you don't have like an elite. So then like if you can figure out a way to get pieces around you, you're just in such a good spot. And Baker again is playing very well. Like he has
Except for that
shown,
fumble.
except for the
Yeah.
fumble, but like I don't know. Like I certainly think he's a top 15 quarterback in the NFL.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like so you got that going for you, which is nice.
yeah. I'd feel good, but I don't think you're getting back to the Super Bowl like you did with Tom Brady.
No.
Um, the Vikings though have a really interesting decision to make with Sam Darnold, and maybe
I
we'll
don't
get to
think
that in a bit.
anymore.
But
I don't think they do anymore. Now I think it's actually a pretty
you don't
clear
think they'd
cut.
consider franchise tagging him at least?
Fucking maybe, but like definitely maybe. I don't think they're gonna turn to JJ McCarthy. I just because like that, I think that's too much to put on him, and they probably feel more like, hey, we could do better.
Well, there's been inquiries about JJ McCarthy from what I've heard in terms of trades. And
Yeah,
there's some people talking about like this year's draft class where as much as Shadur and Cam Ward are like clearly going to go in the top three, maybe
yeah,
Travis Hunter goes above them, but at least
yeah,
in terms of top two quarterbacks, it's Shadur and Cam Ward. It
yeah,
sounds like some people think that JJ McCarthy would have been the number one quarterback if he was in this year's draft class. And he's
yeah,
also like still one of the most youngest players in the NFL. I think he hasn't even turned 22 yet. Like
yep,
he turned 21 in like October or something. I according to them they're not willing to trade him. They're going to keep him for sure.
yep.
And
I
so
get
that
that.
means it's going to be a competition with JJ and whoever else they have. And I could see them passing on Darnold very easily.
I certainly don't think they're going to pay Dar like you can, like the problem is we just saw Sam Darnold play in what was essentially two playoff games.
Right.
Like that's what that was.
Yeah.
Really big stakes against good teams, and he looked like the old Sam Darnold in both of those games. He looked like a guy who was flustered. They brought the pressure. I mean, he got sacked so many times in this past game, and he got so much pressure put on him in the previous, and he just kind of folded. So you know that. Like there's no like you had the whole regular season where you're like, oh, maybe he's figured it out, and then you see that and you go, oh, so he didn't. Like, cool, this is what he is. So you're either like by signing up for that again, it's like, okay, then this is just where we're at, or you take a bigger swing with a good defense and offensive weapons that are primed to win now. And I kind of think that's what you got to do if you're the Vikings. Like, it's really hard to justify paying him now.
And it seems so evident that like if you just look at that win with Josh Dobbs, like this is all Kevin O'Connell. It could be anyone under there. It could be anyone at quarterback, and they'll at least be back in this position where they're a wild card team. I
Yeah.
I don't see them based on their roster not winning 10 plus games, even with you know fucking even if Russell Wilson was the quarterback, I'd probably expect that. But
Yeah.
yeah, they most likely move off Darnold if I had to bet on it, because he's going to be
For
trying to
them
get as
for
much
moving,
money as possible.
good for them for moving off Cousins though. Like
Yeah.
they knew. I think they had to know on some level, like, oh shit, we gotta
Well,
not pay.
I think when you go 13-4 and lose to the Giants and Daniel Jones with Cousins, that's a pretty emblematic, ceiling of what to expect. But
100%.
otherwise, their roster's really good. They get Christian Darrisaw back healthy next season, and he's one of the best left tackles in the NFL. So they'll be a very. It, I feel like any quarterback that wants to move would be vying and begging to get a meeting with the Vikings and probably even consider taking a pay cut to go
Oh
there.
yeah. How is ayahuasca legal in Minnesota?
Weed is not, but I've been telling you this theory of mine since like
Oh.
Christmas.
No, you called it weeks ago and I wasn't on board, but
So I've had this theory brewing honestly since Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets. I remember I had a meal with someone that lived in Minnesota and we were talking Vikings, and I was asking them like, how confident are you with Cousins? Because I feel like once this contract is over, if he's a free agent, if they have a chance at Rodgers, they're going to take it. And obviously Rodgers got hurt, but he's at a crossroads in his career where I think there's only two options for him. If he doesn't retire, he has to be begging to go to the Vikings.
Mhm.
I think that's the only place where he can redeem his career. He has
Mhm.
fallen off so much in like the eyes of like,
Oh
fans and everyone. Like you kind of excuse the year that he missed, but for them to go 7 wins with Zach Wilson and 5 with him the year after
yeah.
and trade for Adams is
Yeah.
such an indictment on him. But he was getting better as he got more removed and healthy from the Achilles. The last several weeks, I didn't think he was terrible. I thought he was at least a top 20 quarterback because there's such a big fall off after like the Baker Mayfield tier kind of.
Yep.
But he can still play well if he has proper coaching, if he's
Hmm.
been humbled enough to where he's willing to accept, you know, being out of his comfort zone. Like if he's trying to play with Hackett again just to be fucking happy, like okay, fuck off and just retire, man. We don't need this shit. Understand where you are. Understand like the situation that is open in Minnesota and
Hmm.
like just humble yourself for a year because I think that's not only the ideal situation for him, but I think he's the only quarterback on the open market that not only satisfies the Super Bowl expectations of the fan base now, but
Hmm.
also gives JJ McCarthy the runway and peace of mind to know that no matter what in 2026, McCarthy is the guy. A 1 year deal for Aaron Rodgers, going to
Yep.
Minnesota, being Favre 2.0, and if that actually happens, we saw what happened in 2009. I don't know if you watched the Vikings that year, but I was, I think I may have had the most fun watching the Brett Favre Vikings of
Mm.
2009 than I can almost ever remember in my 30 years as an NFL fan. Like, that was one of the
Mm.
most entertaining seasons, and it ended pretty rough, because of the Spygate his like final interception in overtime was like, it was really like who Brett Favre is, just this gunslinger.
Yeah.
But the Vikings do this all the time. They look to former Packers in free agency to fill the gaps in their roster, whether it's Greg
Yeah.
Jennings, whether it's Zadarius Smith recently, or even just last year with Aaron Jones. They know
Hmm.
this division so well. They're
Yep.
always envious of the Packers, and it's really easy to convince their ownership and GM, like, hey, let's take the best player that's leaving the Packers and put him on our roster. When Favre was trying to get out of Green Bay, the Packers were hell bent on preventing him to go to Minnesota. He wanted to go to the Vikings. He saw the opportunity, and the Packers were like, "No fucking way. We're
Yeah.
trading you to a different conference, and you're not fucking coming here." And it took him retiring again in order to
Yeah.
get that shit to happen. And if
Yeah.
that's what Rogers has to do, fucking do it. Like, go
Yeah.
on a podcast and shit talk Johnson and Johnson. Like, do whatever the fuck you need to, man.
Oh,
But this is the only way you have any shot at redemption. And maybe he has to go full Brett Favre and send a dick pic to somebody that works in the organization. And that's what send it to fucking the Johnson and Johnson CEO's wife. Like
right?
send it to the owner's wife.
To someone.
But just get the fuck out of there and go to the Vikings. And
Hmm.
I really think they would be like in their best chance to succeed with a swan song Aaron Rodgers season. And I don't think there's
Hmm.
any other quarterback that can fill the like need of having all of those weapons, a really good defense like we just saw, and another year of no playoff wins.
Hmm. Yep.
He's
No,
the
I'm
only
I'm with you
one.
there. He's the only one.
So I would love to see it. I think he may have to take a $10 million deal in order to do it.
Oh, it's a prove it deal for sure. But I think Sam Darnold could command more money than Aaron Rodgers at this point.
100%.
And
And
I think a team like the Titans or the Raiders or one of those teams is like dumb enough to pay Sam Darnold like
I think the Colts will go after
yeah,
Darnold, but
yeah,
I could definitely see those teams as well. The Titans with the number one pick are really interesting in terms of like, are they going to be allowed to draft Shador Sanders? And if not, do they trade down? They
yeah,
have a lot of cap space. I think they have 44 mil in cap space, but the Vikings
yeah.
actually have 69. The Vikings are top 6 in cap space.
Pretty good.
And if you spent 10 on Rodgers, maybe up to like 20 if you fucking had to.
I think you can get
But
it for 10. Like,
yeah,
because it's that or nothing. Like he can't stay with the Jets. Like they're not going to want to bring him back, and he's probably not going to want to go back. So it's like, cool. Do I want it? Because then he's presented with one of two things. Do I be the starting quarterback for the Vikings, or do I just take a year off and wait for someone to get hurt and get called.
I don't
I
think he
think
can. He
I
can't
don't think
afford to do that. And the Vikings have all the leverage. Like
yeah.
they should do what they did to Darnold. 1 year,
Plus,
10 million.
who wouldn't love the story of the repeats, you know? Like that's
Yeah,
just such a great media cycle and it's such a great like the fan base would be all aboard it just 'cause it's like, oh fuck yeah, one more time.
it's perfect, but this to some Vikings fans I know, and they don't answer me. Like I'm like, am I crazy for being convinced this is gonna happen? And they just don't even fucking. I think they're done with Rodgers as well, and I wouldn't be shocked if he just retired. But that's
Yeah,
what
for
I'd
sure.
like to see happen. I think that'd be the most interesting storyline that could come out of this year, because otherwise, like unless you're trading for Kyler Murray, there is not a single quarterback on the open
Mhm.
market this season that is more appealing than Darnold. And you know exactly what you're getting if you're the
Yeah.
Vikings if you bring back Darnold. So,
Yeah, 100%. And again, all everyone talks about is that this quarterback class, like a ton of people don't even think there's one first round, like true first round pick.
yeah, it's nothing like last year. And also, if it goes poorly, if it doesn't work out, if you hit week 5 and you're like 1-4 and Rodgers just had like a 4 pick game, sacked 3 times, and just looks so effing washed, then what better way to build confidence in your rookie than
Mhm.
knowing for a fact he is better than this first ballot Hall of Famer?
Yeah, for sure.
So
For sure.
that I think is, if I could wave a magic wand and have just
And
one
and
thing happen this
Roger's
offseason,
having the ego he has. Like you know he's thinking, how do I pin this on the Jets? How do I make
and how do I become relevant again? You know he loves the spotlight. Like he's a bit of an egomaniac.
So really the only team that kind of fits that bill is the Vikings. So
Yeah, we'll see. But I would love to see that happen, man. I think it'd be so fun. Rodgers
Oh,
to throw those weapons with that play calling and like a healthy Christian Darrisaw as well. They have everything you want.
yeah. And hopefully he's one more year healthier and like more confident on the
Yeah.
Achilles. So
That's
yeah.
where I'm not willing to like completely write off Cousins, where like he even had like 2 months less than Rodgers to recover. And although he was
And it was on
younger,
a worse leg. I remember people were talking about that at the time.
right, more of the plant leg, yeah.
Hmm.
Speaking of Cousins, I'll mention him real quick. I expect him to take a $1 million deal with the San Francisco 49ers.
I
Because,
don't think they can pay Purdy. I wouldn't.
well,
Um,
Purdy's under contract and Purdy's going to be demanding a deal. I wouldn't be shocked if they forced, uh, they
well, 'cause they
called his
don't have
bluff and just traded
the
him.
they don't have the tag, right? Because
They,
he's
no, he's 1 year under contract. He's getting paid 5.2 mil next season. He's under
mm,
contract for 1 more year, and then he's a free agent. But if I was him, I'd be demanding some type of investment. Like, and
yeah.
if you're going to demand it after last year, I think they're going to keep him because it's just like with Ayuk. Like, we'll go down to the wire if we have to. And Cousins is going to be in the Russell Wilson situation where they're going to have to get rid of him because they're
Yeah.
paying him so much, and he's just going to take a $1 million deal. And if he doesn't go to San Francisco, which I think he would, he got drafted by Shanahan in the first place.
Hmm.
That's the type of roster where he can succeed and not have, it's kind of like the next best option to the Vikings. Like
Oh,
you have
sure.
everything you fucking need. They were just in the Super Bowl, but it's just a matter of will the quarterback, deliver the ball on time, and that's what he can do. I
Yeah.
think if
You're hopeful that he's healthier for sure.
as
And I
long as
think
the velocity can come back,
I think Atlanta at this point is just going to move on to Penix like
they
fully.
have to. Yeah,
Yeah, they
they
have
can't keep
to.
him there. That'd be ridiculous.
Hmm.
But that's what I think would happen. Rodgers goes to the Vikings and
Hmm.
Cousins goes to the Niners. And whether
Hmm.
Purdy stays healthy or not, we'll see Cousins get some starts.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm excited for that. And yeah, next year should be fun.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. We skipped the Packers, but they're just a year away. They got so hurt and they're like
Yeah,
they have so many young players. Like
I think they're in a
they'll be
great
fine.
spot. Like I really do. I think next year they'll be even better. Like at least they like I'm not like even though they lost, I'm not worried about them. Like yeah.
I also think they have a chance to build some momentum in free agency after Jacobs
Mm-hmm.
had so much success choosing to
Mm-hmm.
go there and being such a difference maker for them. Like they're really
Mm-hmm.
close. The only teams that beat them were the teams that are still in the playoffs right now in the NFC, and otherwise they can beat anyone. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're right there, but they're kind of like the Chargers where now based off of last year's expectation, you're maybe not as convinced that the quarterback can elevate you as much as we did last season. But it's really just one win against the Cowboys, and then oh, have you seen his Toyotathon stats?
Mm-hmm.
In the month of Toyotathon, whether it's last year or this year, Jordan Love has 28 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. In
Man,
all other games, he has 28 touchdowns and 29 interceptions.
man, he loves a good deal.
He just really wants that CRV in his driveway.
That feels like something Toyota's gonna learn about and then try to get him. Well, I think and like get him in an ad or something.
They have to. Why would you not? Yeah, he's an anomaly, but he had a rough season. He got hurt week 1, and then they just never really like let him turn it loose. It was weird.
Like you said, they're all very young, so I think that's just a thing that improves.
Yeah,
Yeah, you got to be excited.
think so. But is that about it?
I think so, yeah. I think we cover, I mean, we could check in again next week after
Yeah.
the next games. I'm excited though for the conclusion of the season and for next year.
Oh, real quick, I just remembered about this. What do you think of Vrabel to the Patriots?
That was the move they had to make. I don't get why they didn't do it last year. Like I don't, you know what I mean? Like I don't
I
get.
think I know, man. I
Hmm,
I think coming off the season with Belichick, they knew that their roster was ass and that no matter what, they'd be a top 5 pick with a chance at the number 1.
hmm,
And
hmm,
Kraft, like notoriously the Patriots have been cheap with free agents and like
hmm,
re-signing even their own guys.
hmm,
Mayo was really affordable, and the Rooney rule has this like
hmm,
guise of like racism in the coaching sphere. And I think as a fall guy that also takes any Rooney rule concerns off your back, to
hmm.
just hire Mike Vrabel immediately in that situation, I can see why he wouldn't want it. I can see
Yeah.
why it doesn't look like great, but they just from a long time like chose Mayo as the successor and set him up like as the fall guy essentially. Like
Yeah.
he had no real path to succeed, and he was never going to have like a fair shake. And literally, like I think it was like week 15, the last year with Belichick, they
Hmm,
brought in Mike Vrabel during his bye week or something and
hmm. I
honored
remember that.
him with like a Hall of Fame ceremony. And he like spoke in front of the entire like crowd and like was like saying like you're so lucky with this organization and like to be here is like such a privilege and they really take care of you.
Hmm,
Like that was like such a sign that like yeah, this is probably meant to be, but for whatever
hmm,
reason we're not going to tarnish your reputation with a terrible season, and we're also not going to put this like massive weight of following Belichick on his heels.
hmm,
And
hmm.
to his credit, he was like, okay, well, if you're not going to give it to me now, I'm going to try and get other jobs. He was almost hired by the Chargers.
For
If
sure.
if Harbaugh didn't want the Chargers job, they would have hired Vrabel.
Yeah.
Reportedly, they really liked him. They told him, "You're our first choice, but we have this meeting with Harbaugh, and we're gonna honor it first." And then they signed Harbaugh, and
Hmm.
Vrabel didn't want any of the other bad fucking jobs, which I don't
Yeah.
blame him. I
I
wouldn't want to
agree.
go to any other team than the
No.
Patriots in this coaching cycle. Like even the Cowboys scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, at least with the Patriots, you're like, all right, hopefully, like there's at least the idea of success.
Mm-hmm.
The Cowboys just seem like a circus, and like with the Cowboys too, you're in such like a precarious spot of like, okay, we're paying Dak and CD.
Yeah,
You really have your hands
you're
tied. Over
probably
there, you
gonna
have a
have to
rookie
trade
quarterback.
Micah,
Yeah, like over there, you have a rookie quarterback at least, and a top draft pick. Like you could do a lot with that.
and they have the most cap space of any team. They
Yeah.
have like $110 million. They have 120. The next highest is
Mhm.
the Raiders at 92, and then the Commanders at 89. Like they are in real good shape. I'm sure Vrabel's going to attract a lot of free agents, and if they can just clean up that defense and get back to no nonsense, you know,
Mhm.
limited penalties, exploit the opponent's weaknesses. He's such a mastermind in some of those ways. Like he knows the rule book so
Mhm.
well. I think he's a perfect fit there. And I would they're my pick to be the second best team in that division. I still expect the Bills to
Mhm.
dominate, but I would think they overtake the Dolphins. They're gonna be a lot more
Yeah.
physical, and as the Dolphins age, their speed dissipates. I
Mhm.
would expect the Patriots to overtake the Dolphins next year.
I totally get that. And like I don't know, I liked what I saw from Drake May.
I did
Like
too. No,
I
that
I
play, his touchdown pass against the Chargers in Week 17 on a offsides call where the flag went up, he had a free play.
Mhm.
He slinged it, and what a great catch! It was like in triple coverage. I mean, obviously you feel more emboldened to throw it, given it's the free play, but still, it was
Yeah.
right where it needed to be. It was a great throw, and I remember like just watching that game, just be like, damn, Drake May is coming.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm excited for him next year. Like I think he could take a big step forward for sure.
That's gonna be a fun team to watch.
Hmm. Yeah, you got to feel good if you're a Patriots fan.
Yeah. Cowboys, if uh,
Good fucking luck.
I mean, they have to make a splash, and that's why it sounds like they're trying to get Deion Sanders. But
Hmm.
if they don't get him, like they're gonna have to beg Bill Belichick to come back. like
Which
otherwise,
I think
everything
he,
else is a massive
which I think
disappointment.
he would. I really do think he
I
would.
think so too. If not,
Yeah.
Kellen Moore.
I don't even think it would come to that. I think Belichick would want to get back to the NFL because I don't think there's another team that would give him a job. So
Yeah, he does have that buyout with UNC.
he's rich enough, he'll figure it. Like that's
Yeah, he just
fine.
wanted his
Don't.
son to get the job.
I think so. Yeah, but then his son could come with him to Dallas, so whatever.
Or he wanted to also just start banging more 20-year-olds.
I I think that, well, I agree with that. I think it's just that he kind of understood, oh, I'm not going to get offered a job. Like, I don't think I'm going to have any job. And I'm going to be proactive and avoid the embarrassment of like going through a whole round of coaching cycles and
Yeah,
not getting a job again. And I'm just going to proactively take a college job and come up with a spiel of like, oh, this is what I really wanted. It's like, no, I think
he's
you're doing
settling.
it to save face.
Yeah. That'd be very interesting. The Cowboys are going to be interesting next season. They kind of showed
Hmm.
some stuff. Like with the right coach, I could see them back at like 10 wins, but
Hmm.
they would need the defense to be lights out. Like that's what they were missing. Like Duron Bland's six
Micah was
pick
hurt for a
six.
lot of it too. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
He
him
needs.
too. But if you get a pick six half the time from one of your from one of your corners, that's going to swing a lot of games in your
Hmm.
favor.
Hmm.
But yeah, that'll be really interesting to watch. Otherwise, I don't think any of the other teams are interesting. Even the Bears.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Hmm. Good luck. I don't know. Someone was convincing me that the Giants are kind of a quarterback away.
you know,
If you
when you
believe,
consider what the Commanders just did, yeah, it's not
yeah,
that far fetched.
because like again, they have a great talent in neighbors. They do have like when healthy a pretty decent line, like one of the better front seven out there.
Yeah.
You if you believe Dable is actually a good coach,
If they can
you know
fix the O line and quarterback, they also got Tyrone Tracy, Brian Burns on the defense. Yeah, they have some pieces. If Dable's actually like a decent coach, then yeah, I wouldn't put it past him to make it interesting. But it's all about
that.
quarterback.
Yeah, if they go with Drew Lock next year, which it kind of seems like they will, then it's like, all right, whatever.
Actually, I could see them. Who do I have with the Giants? They're the third pick.
Hmm.
I could see them trading up, man. Like
Maybe.
I could envision a Titans swap because the
Hmm.
like maybe I'm wrong, but I could see it happen. Otherwise, maybe a Russell Wilson, maybe a Mac Jones.
Hmm.
They don't have a ton of cap space, do they? They have 43. They're kind of middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Um, it's gonna be rough for them,
Hmm.
but maybe Kirk Cousins. Who knows?
Yeah.
I do think the other New York team. I think they're gonna get Justin Fields. I think that's the only other like
Hmm.
landing spot I would feel kind of confident betting on because they have to kind of keep Garrett Wilson happy, and they were
Yeah.
teammates.
Yeah.
You can get Fields for cheap. It makes you a little interesting and some dynamic ability in the run game, and at least a receiver that would you would expect desire to play with him again. Like maybe I'm wrong, but when you consider all their other options on the open market, you're either bringing back Rodgers or praying for Daniel Jones. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, man,
yeah,
it's rough. As someone who believed in the Jets this past year, it's a rough.
maybe they can trade for Brock Purdy. That's about it.
Maybe.
That's about it. But yikes.
Yikes. Well, hey, looking forward to next year.
Yeah, gonna be fun, man. And
Hmm.
this was fun. This
This was
this
fun. Yeah.
this
Thanks
little
for
chat.
having me. What a
Yeah, of
what
course,
a
man.
what a time.
Good to have you back.
Yeah, buddy.
All right, well, stay safe.
Yeah,
Hopefully
right back
the
at you.
winds don't pick up here too much, and the fires are done for this year at least.
Yeah. Yeah. Stay safe out there. And yeah, boy, hopefully so. Yeah, this has been a wild week. All
Yeah. All right, man. Peace out.
right, see you,
Take
buddy.
care.